Sometimes I know for myself when I am faced with a lot of stress or a to-do list that seems like it's forever, and that every time I tick one thing off the to-do list, 3 more things end up having to be done now that that's done. That kind of feeling in me often makes me feel like I'm caught up in this like big emotional, stressful storm. And so I invite you for a moment just to consider that if you were a little boat in a giant ocean in a storm, right, what that would feel like. Like what would be happening in your mind, what would be happening in your body. And now imagine, right, that you were that same boat in a big storm, but you had an anchor. If you had an anchor, how would that change your experience of the storm? Right? You would probably still feel the waves, right? You would probably, if you were seasick the first time, you might still be seasick, right? You might even fear for your safety, right? But you would have this sense that because you were anchored, even though you still get caught up in the waves, that anchor is going to keep bringing you back to a sense of ground or stability. And so it helps to consider, right, this is sort of metaphor for our stress and being and sustaining or being resilient in the midst of stress. So what we're going to do now is something kind of strange, okay? I'm going to ask you to do a little experiment with me, okay? And so what's going to happen is I'm going to ask you to breathe through your mouth for 1 minute. And while you're breathing through your mouth for 1 minute, the invitation is to pay attention to everything that you feel, everything that occurs inside of you, okay? And try not to go to the place of analyzing or trying to figure out why you're feeling what you're feeling. Instead, stay with the felt experience of breathing through your mouth. Now, after a minute is up, I'll ring the singing bowl, and then you're gonna breathe in and out through your nose for 1 minute. And the invitation is the same, just to observe what your experience is, okay? And so after we finish the experiment, we'll talk about I'll share some of the bigger takeaways that the experiment reveals about the neurobiology of our stress response. So begin breathing through your mouth. Oh, by the way, it also helps to close your eyes during this practice, right? To help you really focus in on what's happening internally. So begin breathing through your mouth right now. So go ahead and close your mouth if you haven't already. And now begin breathing through your nose for 1 minute. Okay. So notice what that was like for you, first of all. And then take a moment to maybe even pause the video and jot down any notes about that sort of compare and contrast your experience of mouth breathing and nose breathing. This experiment is a really interesting way to, first of all, note that all we did was breathe for 1 minute, right? So we changed one thing about our experience for 1 minute. And inside of that minute, you changed your state.